Yo, what's going on guys? Welcome back. Welcome back to another video. And as you can see, we're getting into my McLaren F1, which is the PROGEN GP1. Amazing car. This car is a legend. It's a league of its own kind. And the art and the design in this game, Rockstar has done a really good job. Raichu sitting right behind me. I have no idea what this guy is doing. But hey, this is a good looking car. So this was actually one of my first cars in the game. My first supercar in the game. Let me go to Simeon's quickly so that I can actually get another McLaren F1. So like I said, this was actually my first car in the game. It was my first supercar. I lost a lot of money when I first got it. And yes, it was one of my first investment because I just needed something really fast. And this is the car that I came up with. And today, it's actually on sale here at Simeon's. So while I walk right into the garage, I see a bunch of cars here. And looking straight up, we have the PROGEN GP1. This car is an art. It's done. It's a beautiful vehicle. In real life, this car is a legendary car, period. People say it's not the world's best car, but this is the world's best car. It's the fastest vehicle. It's the fastest vehicle in the world, and it's set a lot of records. So this car actually took part in the Le Mans, and you can't actually believe that this car, which was made by McLaren, was actually the first McLaren which was ever released. Can you believe that McLaren came up with such a crazy design, and this was the first car since Ferrari and Lamborghini had been manufacturing cars since a very long time. To be a first car, this car is just extremely impressive. I love the bodywork, the design, and it also set a lot of records. This car actually had a BMW 6.1 liter V12, and the crazy part is it was naturally aspirated. The car actually was in competition in the 1990s, and this car was naturally aspirated. In the future, we came up with more cars which were like the Bugatti Veyron and a few more. These cars were usually crazy because they had quad turbos, twin turbos, and much more. The Bugatti was a W16 with quad turbos, but this car was a naturally aspirated V12. And to reach a top speed, this was crazy. It set a record of 243 miles per hour with a 6.1 liter V12 BMW engine. It's got 6,000 cc M Sport engine and also does 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. This car was one of the fastest road car that was ever made. The design on this that has been done really well. This was an engineering talent. This car is just one of the best cars to ever exist. We have a lot of well-known people such as Elon Musk, Jay Leno, and a lot of people who actually have this car. It's not an extremely rare car, but it was very limited in number, and the prices just shot up. The car currently goes for around 20 million. 10 years ago, it was close to 2 million. And you can see the inflation and the rise in price of this car. So this car it's a very good investment. So when this car actually was released, it was in competition with a few more cars, like the Lamborghini and the Ferrari and a few more. So McLaren was actually new to racing, and they did have no experience before this. This was their first car, and it had a lot of potential because carbon fiber took more than 80 hours to make, when today it can take probably an hour. And the entire body was made with carbon fiber, including the monocoque and the chassis. And this car, during its time, carbon fiber was invented, but it was not in its best form and best shape, since today we are much advanced than what we are currently in. So people suggested that McLaren F1 also start competing and winning, which is when they decided to go ahead with the same car and didn't make any changes. Later on, the F1 LM and a few more cars came up, and they were able to set a record. They had a similar transmission and a similar chassis, but the engine was slightly modified. But anyways, this car right here goes for $882,000 in GTA. Like I said, It's crazy because this car goes for 20 million in real life, but you're getting a really good price here. Probably the car was, when it first came out, it was less than a million, but while this car was being built the first time, they never stuck to a budget. They went all in because they needed the best performance. So McLaren F1 initially started off with a Honda engine, but Honda didn't agree to make the engine for McLaren F1, so they had to stick with the BMW engine. So this V12 set a record, reaching 243 miles per hour. And to be this old, that's really crazy. Alright, so let's go send it to my Murrieta Heights. Alright, let's send it to my auto shop, and I will catch you guys at the auto shop. So the auto shop was actually one of my first few businesses back when I had extremely zero in my bank account. I was struggling. I just had probably one business, and the second one which I bought was the auto shop. I hadn't even tried the Cayo Perico heist, or I didn't even have a submarine, to be honest, and I was working towards that until a customer came to my auto shop and I found this for the first time, and I had to get it for the full price of 1.2 million. It was probably the worst decision, but later on I didn't completely regret it. This car looks good, drives sort of good, and this car, by the way, is completely stock, since I was actually extremely confused if I should go for a LM build or a regular street build, just like how you found on the showrooms and roads. But like I mentioned, I barely had any money and the upgrades were too expensive, so I decided to keep the body and everything in stock because it wouldn't make sense to come up with an LM build without upgrading the engines. So this time we're doing pretty well, and that's the reason why I have two McLaren F1s, since I didn't really know which was the build that I would be going for. Yeah, I went completely broke after that because I thought I might have to sell this now and I don't need the car, but it was worth it. Worth it for sure. Alright, here we are back in the garage. There you guys have it. You have my brand new McLaren, and here you have my first supercar ever in the game. This car is a 6.1 liter, as I said, and it's also got 491 kilowatts of battery power. It's a good looking green. I'm not sure, I think it's the British green, and silver rims, and they look really good. They look amazing with the interior, and the car just came out really well. Absolutely good looking. Here you have my auto shop where I started with, and this car was pretty fast. I started using it for some of the heists and the multiplayer events, and I noticed that this car doesn't have the best performance, but it is quick, it is fast, just doesn't have enough power. Here is the engine, got a good looking cylinder head, which is very much like a different design than the other cars that you have in the game. Here is my new McLaren F1. So I'm definitely thinking that I would go for like an LM build in this. And yeah, it's just nice to have two cars, but yeah, we're doing pretty well right now, since I don't really have to worry a lot about my money, since it's doing alright at this moment. And yes, this car just brings me a lot of nostalgia, and it was more like a reward since I'm finally at a place where I can actually afford two McLaren F1s. To start off with the performance, because that's what matters the most. We are going for an LM build which talks mainly about the performance and competition. So here we're looking for speed. I'm gonna go to the engine, and obviously go to level 4, which is costing 31,800, and stats have been maxed out right now. We go into the transmission. We set it at race transmission, which is the max, and obviously this is a naturally aspirated car. Yeah, but the turbo is just extremely necessary for this severe in GTA, and I'm gonna go ahead and get this for sure. Yeah, it sounds, you get the note once the car takes off talking. Yeah. Yeah. Alright, so we start off with the bumpers. Here we have a bunch of wheels which are so we already have a name called the LM bumper, which is really funny. I'm not sure if Rockstar would actually get sued for this, but it's got an extra splitter with there, and it looks exactly like the actual LM. On the back with the red diffuser, we have carbon and we have strip. I'm gonna go with the carbon, since I guess this car was just completely made out of carbon fiber, and that's what makes this car special, extremely lightweight. Engine cover, we got LM engine cover, which looks exactly like the car. You don't really get to see a lot, but that's what suits the shape the most. So let's go ahead with the LM engine cover. Exhaust, we got tons of options here. We got the quads. Weird, we got 6 there. I mean, this is not bad, but it would be weird to have 6 in all 4 directions. That's just weird. So they get combined into 2. And let's go with this twin bore carbon exhaust. I guess the alternate looks a bit better. We got closed hood catches, and the original car actually had it just in front of the windshield. Here we got the primary headlight covers, we got carbon. So I'm gonna stick with the primary since that's what fades in, and it of course, I'm not sure about the looks, but yeah, it just looks like the real car. We got an LM hood, and I think the real car would actually have something like this, but I guess the LM has a little bit of carbon, so it would be a bit different from my stock build. So let's go ahead with the LM hood. Next up we got the lights. I think I'm going to leave them stock because you get these old classic lights, which are not yellow but they look old, so that looks good. Mirrors, I'm going to go ahead with these race mirrors since they suit the build. Plate, I'm going to just go for my yellow with gold and just put my name on that. Rear covers. The glimpse looks really good since we get to see those cylinders at the back, and they got a bit of titanium on them. The color fade just looks really good. I'm not sure what's the difference between the glimpse cover and the LM glimpse cover, but they look exactly very similar. But the best part is I would choose an option where I get to see more of those titanium cylinders and tanks at the back. They just look really good. Probably too much if I do it in full glass, but let's just keep it in the square for now. Skirts. We got custom skirts which look pretty good. It suits the front, and also we got carbon on the back, so let's go for that. Here we have the 10-degree one and the 30-degree one, which is funny since you pay $6,000 to $7,000 just to tilt the spoilers by 10 degrees, and you want 20 more degrees, you're paying $9,500, which is crazy since I'm not sure what type of motors or batteries that the spoiler uses, but yeah, let's just go for the LM hood. LM spoiler. And I'm not sure if I would do the 30-degree lift along with the spoiler. That would be a bit crazy, but I guess we get to see what's below the spoiler, all those mechanisms and gears. That probably doesn't work, but it just looks cool. So I guess we're just basically adding an extra feature to it. So let's go ahead with the LM with carbon 30 degrees lift. And I think I'm gonna stick with the primary spoiler, even though this is not an active aero, but it just looks a bit more aggressive. We move on to the respray, and here I'm thinking I'll go for like a bright color. I would do the original orange, but I'm thinking I'll do something different. Probably something like a gray or like a silver that's really bright, and it just looks so clean with the color. Yeah, this one's pretty good. It's got a bit of shine to it. And also for the pearl, I think I would do something like a white that makes it extremely bright, and it just shines when you go out in the sun. It just pops. Alright, so what's my secondary here? So my secondary is mostly the skirts, as you can see, which is currently in red. And we also got the exhaust, the outer tip of the exhaust, which I thought was black. We also got the door handles, the door pins, whatever that is. And the other option, surprisingly, is the engine. The small sort of protection like a cage that actually is under my secondary option. So of course I could do it in like a silver, but this car actually has, for those of you guys who didn't know about this car has got gold plated engine, an engine bay which is made of gold. The reason behind this is the McLaren was just too powerful that there was a lot of heat in the engine bay and people didn't know what to do with the extra heat because it was heating up the engine. And the only solution that they could find to this was actually making the entire engine bay out of gold, since gold dissipates heat and it also reflects the most amount of heat, and the engine would just be in a much cooler place. So that's crazy because this car actually didn't have a budget. So while Gordon Murray was actually building this car, he said that he wouldn't really stick to a budget while building this car since they were mostly looking at the best performance. And that's the reason why, even though it's gold, you get your price. So here, I'm actually gonna do pure gold, since that's what makes it special. And it doesn't shine, but you also got a couple more advantages like the skirts and the exhaust and the pins. But yeah, an overall gold look in the engine that just looks really good. How could you say no to that? For the interior, I think I'll go with something classic, like a brown or like a tan. And I'm going for an old man spec, but this car just looks good in the way it is right now. The brown sort of gives it a luxury or a royal look. Now the wheels, I'm thinking I'll go with something extremely classic, just like the real car, and definitely it has to be a 5-spoke wheel. So the previous build that I had actually had the Wangen Master, which is a 5-spoke wheel, and that definitely looks good. But I was going for a bit of concave look to it. So the Deep 5 here looks very much similar like the one I want, but the diameter of the wheel is just extremely too small. And you got an outer lip which is in a different color. I don't think that's chrome. So I'm looking for a wheel which is slightly bigger than this, but this is the type of build that I'm going for currently. And the best option that I can find right now is the rough welt. That one looks absolutely good looking on this car. And we're gonna go ahead and change the color to a white. That car just looks so good right now. It just looks so clean with the silver body and the white wheels. I could go for black, but this one just looks so good. Now this car would be something of its own league. I wouldn't do any custom tires since the look would get ruined, and also I would keep the windows just like how it is, since the interior just looks so good. Even though we can't really see it, but I guess I want to see as much of the engine as possible, since that's the most beautiful engine that I've ever seen. So let's go and pull up over here and check out the gold engine. Absolutely beautiful car. The design, it's so sleek. This car is one of UK's best car to ever been made. That's the center console that I had mentioned about. And here in the back, got carbon intakes, those fuel tanks in the back which are made of carbon, and they go straight to the exhaust. The cylinder head looks unique, and there's the gold. It doesn't really pop in the sun, but it is gold, 24 karat gold, pure gold. And you get to see the engine, you get to see the spoilers and what's below it with the 30-degree tilt. The hoods are just like the real car, and the doors are the butterfly doors, just like the McLaren F1. Rockstar did a really good job on this car, to be honest. Let's go ahead and drive this thing. The headlights look, that's a vibe. This car is just a masterpiece. And wow, here is the car. Here is the car. Here is the McLaren F1. Here is the PROGEN GP1. Absolutely beautiful. What a car. Just looked good. And it's parked next to my McLaren stock. Feels good to have two McLarens. Wow. Of course this car just looks really good, but can't go wrong with an LF build, since sometimes things get confusing. So it's better to have two. This car is just amazing. Tons of carbon fiber. Wow, the interior is just exactly like the real car. Extremely classic. Doesn't really have the center console. So this car actually cost 1.26 million, and which is not really that expensive, and has got a top speed of 123.75 miles per hour. It's got a lap time of 1.03 minutes, and that's not the fastest. It's got a pretty good handling. And it's also got a pretty good performance. Top speed is decent, but it just lacks a bit of power. Comparing it with the modern cars is crazy. It's funny that this car actually set a record, and it's known as the world's fastest car at one point. I love the body along with the white wheels. This car just looks so sleek. The design, this car just smooth. So when I first got the auto shop, I wasn't really very sure where to get the vehicle from, and then I saw it over here for sale when one of my customers had brought it over, and it just looked so good, since I was using a shafter, like I said, and it's pretty slow, but it's a good vehicle which is fast, and it's a sedan which has got 4 doors. But you definitely need a supercar to go from place to place. And I was on the verge, since I do not have any money, and when I say any money, I mean any money. I was stuck at probably $1,000. That's what I did. And somehow I was able to get the business, but that didn't work out, since it took a lot of time, and I regretted getting this vehicle for a day, since 1 million was a lot of money. And my next target was actually to get the Kosaka submarine, since 2 million would be a good investment, since I would get back the other million just by doing the heists. But when I purchased this, I knew that I lost everything. I lost my bank account, I lost all my balance, I have nothing to do. The worst part is I'm at a stage where I cannot even resupply the businesses. But this car is rare. This car is just rare, since you go to the website and I couldn't find it. I looked up everywhere, in Siemens, the Motorsport, both the websites. I tried looking up everywhere, and I looked up online, and it said that this car, it's extremely rare. So I had to make this chance, and I bought it, and I felt special in this vehicle. It's rare. You barely find it even in the game. I found a few people who just drive it around, but it's not as rare as you think it is. Of course, for its time of being released, it was fast, it had the performance. When you compare it with the modern cars, probably this car might not be the best, or might not perform the best, it might not even catch up, but it is fast. The dashboard just looks really good. You see the gauge cluster, that looks exactly like a classic car. Probably does not look exactly like the real car, but it does suit the vibe for this car. It's got the steering wheel, which looks beautiful. The texture on the interior, and it's extremely clean, so clean. You got those buttons on your right, which are extremely easy to use and very easy to access. It doesn't really have a lot of going on there. Got the center console, which isn't really visible at this moment, but you got it on the side, and it's very subtle. Definitely a very clean interior. The speakers look really good. It's engraved on the side. Don't really have a lot of buttons, and it's a very clean interior. But in this game, obviously, we just have 2 seats. Sounds beautiful. It's also got a exhaust note along with that. Sounds like an airplane. That's crazy how they could do all of it into this car. Here is the PROGEN GP1. So the original car actually had 3 seats, and the reason behind this was you just get a better field of view, and that's how cars were supposed to be meant to be driven. So McLaren decided to go ahead with this design, and when the car was initially in production and just the concepts were released, this car was designed to be an F1 car having a Honda engine and a 3-seater. The reason behind 3 seats being that it's very similar to an aircraft, and they were engineered using the same concept. So this car has a really good performance. Let's talk about the stats in this game. This car was released in the Special Vehicle Circuit update in March 14, 2017. It originally cost 1.26 million, and you can sell it off and get it from other players at the LS car meet. It is a removed vehicle, and it has been part of the podium a few times. I mean, just once, and been part of the LS car meet win for probably 4 to 5 times. It's also been in the Siemens and other showrooms. So it's based on the McLaren F1 real life, and it's got a top speed of 123.75 miles per hour. Of course, when it's fully upgraded. So this car, it's got a pretty good performance, which I really like about it. It's got the power, it's got the potential. The only issue is you feel like it's got a bit lesser power than it's supposed to have. Even though McLaren F1 was one of the fastest car, but it didn't have like sort of crazy numbers like 1,000 to 2,000 horsepower. But the specialty of this car is it's lightweight, since it's made of an entire carbon fiber monocoque and body. And speaking about back then, it would take approximately 90 hours just to make one McLaren F1 body. and I'm talking about just the carbon fiber. Of course, today all you need is an hour and a half and you'll have a whole entire monocoque. Like the McLaren P1 uses full carbon, should take less than an hour almost an hour to make. But this one took almost 800 plus hours, and that's crazy since the entire car was made out of carbon fiber. So this car doesn't really understeer, doesn't really oversteer, it drives exactly and perfectly like how you want it to drive, doesn't skid out too much, it's got pretty good grip, but what's special is it's light. That's what helps it drive the way it is. So you couldn't really expect a lot of horsepower, right? It looks like it should be having something like 500 horsepower or something less than that, but strength is its weight. The car has a lap time of 1.03.097 seconds. The handling is not bad, it actually drives like it's on rails, it doesn't want to slide, but it's just fun for driving around and it's a really fun vehicle. You can drive it around in free roam, probably not do it in the races since it would be difficult to catch up with the other vehicles which are released today, since those are pretty crazy. You compare it with the Krieger and a lot of other vehicles. Krieger is probably my favorite to drive around, but when you talk about its time, this car would not catch up. So like I mentioned, it was one of my first car, and when you start a heist, you are supposed to, you exit for example your apartment, you will be spawned in front of your apartment along with your 4 mates who are going to help you out with the heist, and it's a competition who gets there first. I noticed people just stare at my car for 10 minutes into the McLaren F1, and then we start driving and the car doesn't really catch up, but it's light. It's a very gorgeous car, extremely underpowered. It's one of the fastest supers in the game, but not as slow as an Infernus. McLaren F1 is a limited supercar built by the British automaker McLaren F1. McLaren F1 was the first car to be built by newly founded McLaren, and there were just under 110 units which were sold for 6 years, and it's an extremely rare and expensive car. Of course, that's not including the inflation which is come to today in 2025, and that's crazy because back when I was struggling to make money, it was so hard, and here I am, 2nd of February 2025, where I'm getting my second McLaren F1. So the engine sourced from the BMW without the need of a forced induction. The chassis was made of carbon fiber, and this was the very first car to use the component. A unique 3-seater driver position in the middle, F1 is also known as the first supercar to equip the 6-speed manual gearbox through-mounted in the right side, similar to a left-hand drive. Rear tires, they had a sidewall with the same aspect ratio and wheel side from front, which were 235s, and at the back there were 315s. In 1995, the F1 GTR was introduced. F1 was well proven. There were a lot of track tests, and this car reached 220 miles per hour, and the crazy part was it was a naturally aspirated engine, which was to be recorded. So in 1995, F1 GTR was introduced, which was mostly the racing variant of the McLaren F1. This car, it won the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and this was the only McLaren ever to win the victory of Le Mans. The PROGEN GP1, that's a car which is a tribute to one of the most legendary supercars of all time, the McLaren F1. Today, we're driving this beast in Grand Theft Auto, which has got a beautiful performance, the design of an icon, and it's very much like the real life inspiration. We're looking at the car which was inspired by the McLaren F1, which was released in 1992 and came with a naturally aspirated 6.1 litre V12 engine, a central driving position, and a top speed of 243 miles per hour. It is the fastest production car in the world for over a decade. Designed by Gordon Murray, the F1 wasn't just a supercar, it was an engineering marvel, a true blend of art and speed. What a dialogue! This car was one of the best cars in history. And that brings us back to the PROGEN GP1. This car just looks aerodynamic, it's extremely sleek, and this car just is a nostalgia. It's a nostalgic tribute, but does it deliver on the performance? At first glance, the GP1 is near perfection. It is a very good recreation of the McLaren F1. It's got the smooth flowing body lines and also the air vents and the gold trim engine bay. Rockstar did a really good job. The car has the car has a classic cockpit, a mid-engine layout, and of course those iconic butterfly doors. Even the rear taillight design says a McLaren F1. In terms of customization, the GP1 offers some solid options. You can tweak with the aerodynamics, you can add some racing liveries, you can enhance performance with the engine upgrades. However, in GTA, the choices are a bit limited compared to some of the other modern supercars that we have in this game. Now let's talk about performance. The GP1, obviously, I'm just gonna go with the fact that this one is the F1 and we got the high revving V12, just like the real counterpart. The car feels lightweight and is extremely responsive, making it a great choice for these tight corners and technical tracks. It doesn't skid unless you lose a bit of traction and you lose control of the car. It slides to the opposite direction. While the GP1 handles amazing, it's not the fastest supercar in the game. Cars like the Krieger's, Immerus, they can easily beat this car in terms of top speed and acceleration. However, if you're a big fan of the precision driving and nostalgia, this GP1 is a joy. It's an absolute beauty and it's amazing to drive. Talking about price, this one costs 1.26 million in GTA Online. That's a steep price for a supercar that isn't in terms of speed or racing performance. However, if you're a car enthusiast and you appreciate the history behind this car is worth adding to your collection. And as you can see, today, on the 2nd of February, I'm getting my second GP1. So where does this PROGEN GP1 stand? As a tribute to the legendary McLaren F1, it's a near perfection. It brings an iconic supercar into GTA. While it might not be the fastest or the most customizable, it has a lot of engaging driving experience, sharp handling, and also a piece of history, automotive history. For the design, I have to go with a 10 on 10. Performance, probably a 7 out of 10. Customization, 6 out of 10. And value for money, 20 out of 10. This one, yeah, you're pretty much getting a car for free. So overall, if you're a car enthusiast, the PROGEN GP1, it's a machine for those who love the legacy of the McLaren F1. If you're looking for pure speed, there are better options. But if you appreciate legendary automotive history, this deserves a spot in your garage. So what do you think of the PROGEN GP1? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more automotive content. Until next time, drive fast and drive smart. Peace.